So yes, present we have with us Tarun Ghulati garu. We'll talk with him. Namaste. Adi.
Namaste, namaste.
Namaste. How are you?
I'm feeling very, very good, upbeat. I will win this election tomorrow when Londoners cast their vote. I've had blessings come from all over the world, and I've been going around the boroughs and communities in London. I feel very upbeat, very confident, the love and blessings that are flowing towards me. And I'm very sure my mother, who's looking from heaven, who I lost about 14, 15 days ago, she would be looking at me and smiling that her son is doing what she gave me, the Ashirwad, when I met her last. So I'm absolutely delighted to be speaking with you today.
How sweet. I can understand that you're so strong, You just said that your mother passed away 15 days back and you're still so strong. You're fighting the elections and all. So firstly, we
Yes,
feel
I
very
am.
privileged.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, we feel very privileged that an Indian origin man is contesting in London for the mayor's position, and I wish you all the best. So before going into the interview.
Thank you very, very much for your kind wishes.
Great. So firstly, what I wanted to ask is like, when and why did you get this thought of, contesting the elections for mayor's position?
That's an excellent question. Firstly, I was mugged in London. I know that apart from me, most Londoners are feeling very, very unsafe today. Crime has never been worse. You'll be surprised, knife crime has risen by 54% since the mayor Sadiq Khan took over. There have been over 1,000 murders. Women are suffering because sexual assaults have risen by 53%. And notwithstanding that, he has shut down police stations. 36 police stations have been shut down, and 21 teenagers lost their life last year. One life lost, one too many. 18 of them were to knife crime. I will tackle crime with a fervor never seen before. I advise the Global Cyber Alliance as a strategic advisor. So I deal with law enforcement agencies and the police worldwide. I'm the most capable person to bring down crime because this cannot go on any more. People are looking over their shoulder. They're afraid to go out. People are even moving out of London. This has to stop totally.
True, correct. So, Mr. Tarun, when we talk about the political affairs of world politics, we just think about foreigners. Never do we think about Indians going there and contesting for their country. So, how do you think as an Indian to stay there in London and to have a thought of contesting for the well-being of the Londoners?
Basically, I've been blessed with a background, my family, which has been from the 19th, 20th, and 21st century, doing good for people. A lot of what we see in India today, they've had a role to play in paving the way for India's growth over these centuries. That is the guiding light for me. I believe in integrity, honesty, and all throughout my career, I've done good for people. And when I find around me people are suffering, there's a cost of living crisis going on. People are not knowing whether to heat or to eat. And on top of that, some disaster policies have been launched, and the politicians have blurred the vision for London. We live in a democracy where people pay their taxes into a common pool, and you expect your elected representatives to do the best they should to utilize these resources effectively and efficiently to do all they can for the well-being of people, whether it's housing, whether it's social services, whether it's security, safety, transportation. And I genuinely believe that the governments of the day have let people down. And the people, I believe, need change. They need somebody to come in who's got the right sort of experience. I've been a chairman of a bank. I sit on many boards. I've sat on 48 boards all over the world. But more importantly, is the people. I've been dealing with people all over the world. I understand cultural nuances. I deal with different communities all the while. And it is that groundswell support and the feeling of doing good all the while that drives me.
That's great. So when I was going through your, campaigns and the way you spoke, you just got to a notice that there's a law which states that only 20 miles per kilometer. So what's this law and why do you want to get rid of this law?
Basically, you'll be surprised that London is today the most congested city in the world. It is also the slowest city in the world. And what that means is individuals, an average driver is wasting over 156 hours in congestion. Now that means time wasting, money wasting, because they're also losing about 1,375 pounds, each one of these average drivers, which means normal people who are moving around London. That is what is adding to the congestion,
But
not
actually,
the disaster. Sorry, not
right.
the disaster policy of Jules, which is a poor person who's a moderate person like me or anybody else wanting to move into London, is having to pay £12.50. Believe me, £12.50 is pretty onerous for a lot of people. And then if they move further in, they're paying £15 for congestion charge. The 20 miles per hour limit is causing congestion, is not required, unless it's close to a hospital or a school. This
So
has to
actually,
become
why was
history.
this
So I'm
law
going to
actually made? Because when we talk about the minimum speed, we actually talk about 40 or 30, which is actually the economic speed. So, but why in London they said that the 20 miles per hour is an economic speed? What made the former leaders to do this?
Well, the current mayor, Mr. Sadiq Khan, has probably declared in his mind and his policymakers on all motorists, on all ordinary people living in London. He's actually brought London to a standstill, and London has to move on. So it's an ill-designed policy, and like most of his policies, and then like any other politician, he basically is like I actually call him a trainee seeking for a third term. He's already put London behind by 8 years of his current tenure, and then is offering all sorts of initiatives to people. Why? Where were all these initiatives for the last 8 years? So he's failed Londoners. Politicians have failed Londoners, and basically, I want to bring about change, transformational change, so that you don't need an politician to be leading London. I'm usually asked, can an independent win the next election, can be the next mayor of London? Of course I can. Of course I will, with the love and affection and the votes of all the Londoners. They are sick and tired of politicians, both on Mr. Sadiq Khan, who represent the Labour Party, and Ms. Susan Hall, who's the Conservative Party candidate. She is complicit because she is a GLA, has sat beside Mr. Khan in City Hall, and has let all these policies run, on the minds of every Londoner. So basically, she's complicit. She should have raised her voice, not before she got the ticket, all along those 7 years. And if her voice was not loud enough, she should have used a megaphone or a mic. But she actually chose to give her larynx a 7 year long vacation. That is when I say these politicians have let all Londoners down. And this has to change. And this will be changed on the 2nd of May, tomorrow, when Londoners go to vote.
True that. So I just got through your all comments. So one comment actually excited me so much, and you know why? I was so astonished with the comment that you said that London's democracy is about to end and all. So what made you, say this kind of comment?
Basically, people are suffering. As you go around London, you find people are not having good homes. They don't have genuine, affordable homes. So there is a lot. Rough sleeping has gone up. Nobody's giving it a thought. 2.2 million, yes, 2.2 million Londoners are living in poverty. 33% of them are children. So you can imagine what is happening in London. Security has never been worse. Transportation, well, people can't call it transportation anymore. Not enough investment has gone into it. So people are suffering. On the one hand, Mr. Khan has declared a war on motorists. On the other hand, public transportation should actually be working a lot better, but he doesn't just care. He just doesn't care. It doesn't bother him. And on top of that, the communities are feeling insular and divided, because if you don't have a home that you can call a home, then the youth are getting affected, and that is leading to their exploitation. I want to bring opportunities back to London. I want to make it the most greenest city, the most digitally connected, the safest city, so that I can bring in transformational change in terms of innovation, technology, give opportunities to the youth. The retailers are suffering. The businesses are suffering. So I'm going to bring down council tax rates. I'm going to bring down business rates. And on top of that, the disabled, the elderly need better access to transportation. So the Freedom Pass and the 60 plus pass will be available for all 60 plus people and over peak hours. And you know what? It's not a level playing field. Black cab drivers can go into the congestion charge zone without paying congestion charge. But the Uber drivers who are providing excellent service from all over the world, they've come into London, well, they will be given the same. There will be no congestion charge that they will pay. So I want to remove congestion charge over the weekends and holidays. You know, the freedom of movement is as important as the freedom of speech. So all in all, these politicians have let Londoners down, and this has to change. And somebody like me, who's always stood by the people, believe in the people, it should be only for the people, of the people, and by the people. So that is where I come in. They will elect me tomorrow on the 2nd of May, and I'm going to make sure I do everything I can within my powers. Just the other day, I was listening to the the candidates in the fray, because the media only calls the party candidates, and so I don't get a sniff at the media. But my voice is loud and clear all over. I've challenged Mr. Khan and Ms. Susan Hall and anybody else on a debate, because none of the candidates, including the independents, have my experience. And above all, I'm not going to make any excuses. I have a shadow cabinet ready to hit the ground running. My training allows me to bring about transformational change. And not only the 21 billion sterling budget will be utilized efficiently for all, but as a banker, I've been a chairman, I've been CEO of India's largest asset management company globally. I will create new funds. So there'll be sustainable funds, impact funds, housing funds, affordable infrastructure for people, better health services. So people, I'll create these funds so that we can redeploy this money for the people, education funds so that the youth have an opportunity to seek better opportunities. This will be a new horizon for people that they can look forward to. In my opinion, when we sit in an aircraft, I imagine people there are over 270 nations diaspora that call London home. There are over 300 languages spoken here. So imagine if my aircraft was full of all these communities. So when you sit in an aircraft, various factors to come together. But I want, when the aircraft takes off, London soars with all these communities, all smiling. I want to bring back the smile on the faces of every Londoner. That's where I'm coming from.
That's great. So, Mr. Ghulati, when you're talking about this, so you spoke about all the the problems which the Londoners are actually facing, be it development or else the basic amenities. So, why do you think the political parties have actually failed in it?
Oh, they failed badly because they're bickering with each other. They've forgotten that they are elected representatives, and their role, and the only role, is not to go off on their expeditions and explorations and espouse ideas and policies that don't work for people. They've taken their eye off the ball. They've even failed the people in Gaza. I've been the strongest voice for all people living in Gaza. There's a war ongoing there. There's a genocide. There's a carnage, and the government is complicit in supplying arms there. I believe this war has to stop. There are people suffering there, the women and children. In fact, I've even advised the government, if they were to listen to me, it's beyond my pay grade. They've been to Ukraine, seen the mass graves. They should go to Gaza and the Rafah crossing and see those graves. And that is what is missing. They are missing that they are there only for the people, but here they are only wanting to make sure they can retain the seats. They're forgetting there is going to be a national election later this year, early next year in January, and the people will speak. The voice of the people will be louder than the politicians who've been silent. Their silence is indeed deafening.
Right. So, as you spoke about the war, you're very aware that about the war. At the same time, you're also aware that in London, there are many immigrants of Palestine who are actually, fighting and protesting. So, how do you, control these protests and all?
Well, firstly, I've been part of those marches. I've been standing side by side with the people of Gaza, with the Londoners. These marches will go on because they're peaceful. Unless the government decides to stop the war and they're actually swaying like the wind. They change their ideas, their voices to suit themselves. They should speak in one voice only for the people of Gaza. And that is why these marches, which are peaceful, and I believe if there are peaceful marches, they should go on. And that is where Well, people have to voice their thoughts. So they're voicing them peacefully, and I stand by that. In fact, I was, along with every other candidate, given 1 minute on BBC recently to talk about who am I, why am I standing for election, what are my policies, and what is good and bad about London. Even in that 1 minute, I was the only voice amongst those 13 candidates who spoke for the people of Gaza, saying this atrocity has to stop permanently. I'm not interested in a ceasefire which is temporary or permanent. That's not going to solve the problem. This war has to stop. So I'm a strong voice for the people, for all communities. I want safety for all the communities. I want them to live in harmony. And that will only happen. In fact, I've been speaking with the Director General of the London Central Mosque, Ms. Dr. Ahmed Al-Dubian, and he's tried for years to bring harmony between the Hindus and the Muslims, but people don't stand by the word. We have decided we're going to bring harmony to the world. I want people to live in harmony. The Hindus, the Muslims, the Christians, anybody else who lives in London. And that's what I'm talking about. We want to make sure this is our London, our home. All Londoners should find peace here and live in harmony.
So, yes, so Mr. Tarun, let's have a small break from your, the political conversation that we are having right now. So, the person who's sitting here strongly, he also has a strong, the sufferings which you have done in the past from the tomato ketchup which you have been selling and all. So, could you just explain about your past and your journey till here?
Well, the journey has been one which I can describe as being pure hard work, tenacity, and grit. I started, I hold 4 postgraduate qualifications, but my desire was to work hard and learn on the ground. And so I started selling tomato ketchup in Jaipur. And there were established brands, global brands that were selling there, some national brands that were firmly entrenched in the minds and on the window and on the shelves of the the sellers. And I would go and deliver these ketchup bottles, which is actually, if you know, it's bright and red and rich in color on our tables. But I would go around and picking up these dirty, empty bottles to ensure I could have them cleaned, rebottled, refilled, and sold so that I could be competitive. And you'll be surprised, I then got very large orders, big tenders I won because of hard work. So I started from there. Then I was cold calling, selling manual typewriters. And then I knocking on doors all across Delhi. And then I launched Xerox in India, the word processors. And those days, most of the embassies, all the high commissions, the UN bodies, and individual offices only use manual typewriters. At best, IBM electric typewriters. So the USP those days would be computers didn't exist, by the way. Or very few of them. So I would be telling them, wouldn't you like your letter to be right side justified, emboldened, and looking nice so that your customers saw a letter that would move them to do business with you. So I would extol the virtues, and I was the first person to sell those equipments in India. And then I was hired by Philips, the only non-engineer helping design lighting systems. So if you look at the entire NCR region from Delhi going up to UP and then in Rajasthan, all those street lightings or those big tenders were won by me. So I contributed to lighting systems across North India. And then I was headhunted by Citibank. So I was head of sales and distribution for North India. And those days, foreign banks were not allowed to open branches. So I created chartered accountancy firms across 16 locations in India, where they would do the front end and the back end, the collections and the sales. So I created a brand that beat everybody else in the market, making sure I could go to the common man and give out money. And then I was headhunted by HSBC. I went into the investment bank, the financial institutions group responsible for Eastern India, Bangladesh, and Nepal. I was then the operations manager, keep making sure the priority lending targets of the bank, the audits and everything, making sure that the corporate bankers were kept on the straight and narrow. I then ran the retail bank in North India. you may not know HSBC, which has been existing for over 165 years, is the only bank in the world that has a dedicated international manager cadre. What that means is you're meant to be good at what you do, but more importantly, you should be able to bring about transformational change. So you're parachuted into countries where they want to bring about change. So I was selected, the first Indian to be selected from about 25,000 people worldwide. So those attributes and skills hold me in good stead. I then went off to Hong Kong, where I ran credit and risk for 15 countries as credit manager international, which would have meant any proposal. They came from different countries. So these were 15 countries that I was responsible for, would run into hundreds of millions of dollars. Whether it was a plain vanilla lending from Japan, it would even go up to $1 billion. You'd be financing aircrafts one day for the top airlines, and the other day you could be issuing bonds for another entity. For instance, the Tokyo Disneyland securitization was handled by me, hundreds of millions of dollars. And then I was responsible for operations for 14 countries, where I launched the SME businesses, the retail bank, and the corporate bank in many countries, including Bangladesh. And basically, for me, the SMEs are the engines for growth for most countries. About 75 or 80 odd percent of the GDP for most countries will be contributed. So I've dealt with businesses worldwide. I sit on the board of the London Chamber of Commerce and Industry for Asian businesses. I'm the chairman for one of the world's largest startup foundations, where last year we had 11,000 startups and scale-ups come from 11 countries. I also run a set of awards called the 21st Century Icon Awards, where we have winners and finalists come from 44 countries to date. And this is all not for profit. So you help businesses where even entities, I have 3 members from the House of Lords, you have the former Lord Mayor, you have the president of the Commonwealth Games, and several important people who are on the panel of judges who decide. So I do a lot of good in the world. And my desire, as I said, I'm also a strategic advisor to the Global Cyber Alliance, for dealing with the law enforcement worldwide. So I've done a lot of good, and I believe that is what I keep doing in London all the while. I used to run the branches in Southall, for instance, about 20 odd years ago, and where I created a business such that from 1,600 branches that existed those days, the branches were third on the league table in the country. The other 2 who were leaders because they were in the head offices, so they obviously had more customers. Theoretically, I was number 1 in the UK. So when you work hard, you take people along, do good, you feel for the businesses, the SMEs, the startups, the scale-ups, you take people along, the city of London will thrive. And that is what I want to bring to London, create opportunities for the youth, create a sort of movement where everybody moves along. A leveling up agenda is required here. And you need to be thinking only of the people. Every person who will work in my cabinet will have only one mantra, only one goal: do good for the people. If you're not aligned with that cause, you have no place to be working with me.
Correct. That's so true. So the other campaign which I just wanted to talk about is this: bring back smiles on Londonese. So that's a big statement for the whole world, because we actually think that the London is actually a developed and a happy place to live. But you're saying to bring back smiles on Londoners, which just astonished me, maybe the whole world. So why did you do this statement, or what made you run such kind of campaign?
Well, firstly, as I mentioned earlier, 2.2 million Londoners are living in poverty. 33% are children. And Londoners today, if you go around, have lost their smile. You and I would lose our smiles if we found that the security and safety was the worst you can ever imagine. If you found that you could not move around the city because the congestion is so bad that it is now the most congested city. If you found that people didn't have genuine affordable homes, rough sleeping was up, and the communities are getting insular because of that. If you found that nobody was championing London, where social services, other opportunities, the youth, the sports, you'll be surprised, 1/5 of the London economy is driven by the creative economy. I want to turbocharge that, supercharge that, because these are small venues, bigger venues. I view London as akin to a global bank, where it's multicultural, diverse, where people come in from all over the world to seek opportunities of growth. They trust the elected representatives, the government, and I want to build the balance sheet of London, which is profitable for all, where profitability for me would mean the well-being of all Londoners. And that is what I mean by bringing back the smile back on the faces of all Londoners, because they've lost their smiles. I want to bring back the mojo for London, which has been lost. And that is why, for me, it is simple. If people are smiling, they're thriving, they're not looking over the shoulder, feeling safe, and having enough money in their pocket, which the current government, in terms of the mayor, has denied them and has made it more costly for them. We are living in a cost of living crisis. I want to bring prices down. I want to bring the tube prices down for students, for instance. They should be focused only on studies. And here we have a mayor who is actually, and the Conservative candidate, saying, we will offer free school meals. Well, you're not doing any child a favor. This should be a given. This will be a priority, should be a priority permanently. So this is where they feel, I feel, that the governments of today are lacking, and people are feeling the pain. People are leaving London now. You can't walk across London wearing a nice watch or even a nice pair of shoes or a jacket. You will find, and recently I'm pained to see that yesterday there was an attack, brutal attack, in fact, is somebody carrying a sword. A 14-year-old child has lost life, and a policeman's hand is being put together. I mean, this cannot happen in our London. The crime situation is worse. I want to see policemen on the beat. I want to see more policemen. I'm going to review their compensation, in fact, pay them more so that I can get the right sort of people, but they'll be targeted, they'll be accountable. If they're not performing their duties and bringing down crime and preventing crime, well, you don't deserve to be a policeman, then you'll be out. But most policemen are doing a very good day's work, and I want to make sure I'll open police stations, police booths, so that between two police stations, there are places that individuals can go to. I want to protect each Londoner. Particularly women are feeling very unsafe, so there'll be a dedicated unit for women, as I will create more units. And I'm not the expert at everything. I'll bring in city planning experts, transportation experts, security experts, youth experts, community experts. I'm going to bring in advisors from different communities. It's not going to be a top-down approach. You need to take people along with you so that different communities understand their cultural nuances. They will play a role in my government. It is not that I will have a one-size-fits-all, because those people understand the pain points, the aspirations of their communities. I want them to be engaged.
So Mr. Tarun, with this conversation, I understand that you have a clear plan for London's development. At the same time, it is also evident about the crime rates, increase of the crime rates and the poverty that the Londoners are actually facing. So what do you think are actual amendments which the London government, or as a mayor, you have to take for the betterment, the better life of the London people?
Well, like I said, security is paramount. One life lost is one too many. So I'm going to make sure it's the safest city. And how do you make a city safe? By looking at the root cause. What is causing crime here? So the crime is when people don't have enough jobs. They're not educated. I want to give youth the opportunity to go to school, go to colleges. I want them to be educated. So I'll have an education fund. I want to make sure that there are enough police stations. 36 police stations were shut down, 1,000 murders over the last 8 years. So Mr. Khan has set London back by 8 years. And the Conservative candidate, as I mentioned earlier, has been by his side in City Hall for the last 7 years, not only as a GLA, but also as a leader of the Conservative Party in the opposition, the GLA. She is complicit. These disaster policies have been launched like a war on motorists, war on people, particularly because they're suffering from a cost of living crisis. Not enough affordable homes have been built. So I'm going to make sure I incentivize new development, new developers. So I will make sure they have a target for building affordable homes. I'm going to look at zone laws for land use, because you've got to change that. I'm going to make sure I have regeneration programs because there's enough brownfield land. I was involved in the Southall regeneration and the Heathrow partnership, and the Southall is now a transformed place. So I'm going to bring in regeneration programs. I'm going to bring in money from outside because none of these other candidates understand what it is to do good for people on a holistic basis. So it doesn't matter if the government of the day, no matter what happens when the new government and the regime is there, I will do whatever I can do best for people. So there will be crime, will be knife crime, 54% up. Sexual assault, 53% up. This has to stop. And somebody like me has to be bold and decisive. And because you see, the world is going through an inflection point as we speak, geopolitically. So you also need somebody who can take things and grasp the nettle, as they say, take decisive leadership forward. You need somebody who feels for the people, at the same time can stand tall against all world leaders and within the government here, because London contributes to over 22% of the national GDP. So what that means is if London gets a cold, UK will get a fever. So I'm going to stop that. I'm going to make sure I do whatever it is to make London the greatest city in the world and make sure all Londoners, I bring back smiles on their faces.
That's so good. So this one statement which you have proudly stated, that is that your Indian culture will actually guide you. So this one question which rises with the statement, do you think the Londoners would actually vote for someone with another cultural ethnicities, to rule them or else to make some amendments for their betterment? Do you think that?
I think Londoners are sick and tired of these politicians just saying things but not doing anything. You need somebody who can take action, execute. None of these other contenders in the fray have run businesses of the size I've been running. It's a 21 sterling budget. I've run larger businesses 2 or 3 times that size. So firstly, they don't understand what it takes to run London. Secondly, they have not worked overseas. I've worked across continents all over the world. Cultural nuances are not understood by people. So that is where you got to bring somebody who understands people, who speaks different languages, who does everything on a daily basis for the people. So to answer your question, I am a proud Indian, of a person of Indian origin. It taught me how to take people along. I believe in Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which basically means one world, one family. And that is why when I spoke with the Director General of the London Central Mosque and the Islamic Center here, we have decided that we must have a forum, we must have a movement where we can bring harmony between Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and everybody else that lives in London. We want to bring harmony because that is what is required. As I alluded to, a war ongoing. But I've been telling the politicians this can easily spiral out of control. So please look for a total stoppage for this carnage and genocide. This war has to stop. Otherwise, people are pained. There are children and women there. So at the end of the day, my Indianness, my training, the cultural things I learned from my family have helped me all throughout my career, because what it has taught me is to be kind, humble, take people along, give people, I've always tried to bring in people in my teams who are better than me. So that I can learn from them, because the process of learning is never ending. When you bring in good people who are actually all trying to do good, believe me, London will be thriving again. 24 Fortune 500 companies' global headquarters were in London about 14, 15 years ago. We only have 4 or 5 today. Why is that? Because we've lost jobs because of that. We've lost, we've lost revenue because of that, and opportunity. Because today, over the years, we've exited, let's say, from Europe, but not enough has been done with Europe. It's one of our largest trading partners next door. I'm going to make sure that the diaspora here, I create a living bridge between the various diaspora and the countries that they come from, because I've lived and worked in those countries. I know what makes people move, what it is to make sure everybody thrives. And that is what is missing today, because people don't have that experience. You need to bring in somebody with experience. This is not about bringing in somebody from a political party or the other political party. It is not a national election. It's an election for London. where they need to bring in the best person who means well for them, who has the experience, the gravitas, and has been doing it, and actually somebody who's only thinking of the people.
Correct. So finally, one thing which is not to be forgotten is about the Indian citizens, be it students or someone who are job holders present over there in London. So what are your promises for them?
Well, firstly, students come here because they want to study, and they're finding they can't find good places to rent. They are finding it very onerous to move around the transport system here. They're also finding it unsafe. They're also finding it difficult to get student loans. And so I want to make sure as I said, I'm going to give discounts to students that move around. I'm going to be the strongest voice for the higher education and students who come here. And there are some things the mayor can do, something he can be a strong voice. So I'll be the strongest voice for the students. Our Indian students, anywhere they're coming from, all students come here to study. These are some of the most fantastic universities we have here. The education system here is perhaps top class. And I want to make sure they're not worried about other things like finding a place to rent, whether it is moving around the city, safety, security. They want to mingle here. This is the greatest city in the world where it comes to multiculturalism and everything else. So I want to be there for the students. I want to give them opportunity to remain here if I can. So I'm going to be again a strong voice because they contribute a lot, and that's where the contribution comes into the economy. They want to stay here and work here, but they're not able to find jobs. When I go around communities, a lot of students are actually sleeping in rough.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is being done about them. So I'm going to create centers. If they don't have a home, they should be able to sleep, not outside. They have a roof over their head. So now the government people are talking about this because they're not moving around the boroughs and the communities. That is what is missing today. When you think only of the people will vote for somebody who means well for them. And that is why I will win tomorrow on the 2nd of May when Londoners go to vote. So I humbly request all Londoners to come out and support for me. I'm an independent candidate, Tarun Ghulati. I'm not a political person. I have always done good. My family has always done good. This is where I stand for. I want to do good for all Londoners across boroughs and communities.
Great, that. So the vision you have towards the London's development really makes us think. And thank you so much for participating over here. I wish you all the very best. We feel so proud of you to stay strong over there.
Thank you.
To participate in the elections over there. I wish you all the best.
I need all the blessings, all the support. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
బిగ్ టీవీ అవుట్లుక్ కథనాలు నచ్చితే వెంటనే బిగ్ టీవీ ఛానల్ ను సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేయండి.